folks, welcome back to Resolution, the official podcast for the Restorative Justice Council. You're joining on us on episode number 5 of our beginning series. So welcome along. And during today's episode, what we're going to explore is how restorative conferences are actually organised. We're going to be hearing from Rob and Gemma again about their experiences and the process. And we'll also be hearing from Becky and Paul about their role in this too. So we have previously kind of discussed how participants are prepared to take part in a restorative conference and trying to make sure that this part of the process is safe and effective. And that actually requires a lot of planning. We heard about how the meticulous aspect that restorative practitioners go through in order to put a conference or a process on. So during this episode, we're going to discuss that a wee bit further. We're going to discuss some of the practicalities of that. And I'm joined by Becky Childs, Paul Shaw, and Gemma and Rob. So welcome along again, everybody, to another episode. Thanks for helping us out. Becky and Paul, we're going to start with you. Tell us about some of the practicalities, specifically in organising an in-person meeting, and how that related, I suppose, to Rob and Gemma's process specifically, because I was held in a prison, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So it was slightly different in that respect, but that's where your relationship with the prison really comes to fruition, and we're really lucky that we have a great relationship with both prisons in Cleveland. So in this particular case, it was at Kurt Levington, so we had some fantastic support from the offender management unit. We obviously put everything through security when people come into the prison, so they know who's coming in. And that Rob doesn't accidentally walk out with us.
Right, okay.
Sorry, Rob. Need to leave you where you were. But in terms of the practicalities, it literally is about what is that space going to look like? Where are people going to sit? Are we going to be with a table, without a table? Are we going to have Gemma sat next to one of the facilitators? Gemma didn't bring a supporter with her, but ordinarily that would be an option, that Gemma could have brought somebody with her if she wanted to. On that occasion, she didn't. Just to kind of add there, Rob and Gemma actually met a few times after this initial meeting, but in terms of the preparation for the initial, we also had consideration of a breakout space. And again, that's not Rob's exit strategy from the prison. That's a breakout space is where somebody can go if they need to be able to have a few minutes or longer if needed to collect the thoughts, to have some additional support if they need it. Just a break in proceedings, really.
Yeah. Because I think in regards to, because you're dealing with the emotion, and it's heightened in the sense that this was it was a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the potential for it to get emotional is high. So having somewhere for someone to take that time out is an important part of that preparation process. Paul, you were going to come in there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, funnily enough, prisons can be as hard to get in as they can be to get out. So part of that process of someone coming into prison for an actual meeting, it's even the finite things of what you're allowed to take in with you, the potential that you might have to go through a search, that the staff on the gate are aware of your arrival, and like Becky said, in conjunction with fantastic support from the offender management unit in the prison. So all those details we don't want Gemma to have to worry about. They're all taken care of, even the route. And like Gemma alluded earlier in another podcast, that there was pre-preparation as well.
Okay. And what's it like for you guys going into the room at that stage? We kind of had sort of talked a wee bit about your preparation, but you're walking into the room in order to facilitate this process with all the preparation in the world. What's it like when you sit down and you know you're moments away from all of this preparation work coming to a head, and the reality of we now need to facilitate this conversation? What's that like for you two?
It's I'd be lying if I said, you know, you don't feel nervous about that. It's a natural apprehension. And that's because you really just want Gemma, in this case, and Rob to feel like they've got everything they needed from that process. And it's not like an instantaneous thing where, you know, like you expect people to go skipping out of the room and instantly uplifted. That might happen. But, you know, it's just knowing that you've done the best you possibly can in making sure it feels as fluid and natural as possible. And that, you know, if something maybe unexpected does happen, because with the best will in the world, sometimes it does. Knowing that, you know, you can rely on your co-facilitator, I think, can be massively helpful and reassuring in that.
Okay. Paul, what about you, Ian? What was it like for you?
I'll just reiterate everything that Becky's just said there, really. But you're always confident in the fact that you've got that relationship and there's been that preparation, because when it comes to it, you've got to think one of the participants may struggle. But in the preparation, you've already cultured that relationship where they know that as a facilitator, you'll stop in to support them if that does happen. So there's no quiet space or awkwardness. And so the relationship individually between Rob and Gemma, that hasn't been really instrumental apart from just the feedback sessions. We all have confidence in each other.
Yeah. And I suppose that's really important, regardless of what the internal aspect may be for us, that we're confident that we've covered the basis.
Yeah.
And this is that helps with the ongoing facilitation of the day, yeah?
Absolutely, because the consideration is even taken to the, you know, to the finest point of who comes in the room first. Did Gemma want to be sat in the room, or did Rob, would you have preferred Rob to be in the room first? So those are all the kind of things that we did as part of the preparation and the visit to the prison, so that, you know, Gemma could decide what room she wanted, where she might be sat, who was going to come in first. And in this case, Gemma decided she wanted to be sat in the room first. And that's, you know, that's what we did. So that preparation also involved the prison offender manager and, you know, support from prison staff in there, because obviously we have keys to deal with that we don't have.
Sure. Okay, so it sounds like you had all the bases covered for this here, and that obviously the fact that we're actually here talking about it today is obviously an indication of the success of that preparation and the facilitation of the process. Gemma, I'm just going to bring you in here. What I want to try and do is to try and paint a picture of that day. So the day that you're going to meet with Rob, you've had all this preparation, you've talked this thing through, you know what's going to happen. You wake up. What's happening for you?
I think I was still a little bit like, I mean, obviously I was nervous because I hadn't seen him at all since the day it happened at work. It was, so it was still, although I knew what to expect to go with the environment because I'd had the visit before, I got to choose which room. So it's not as if I was going in blind. I was still nervous of the fact of how I'd react when I saw him initially. And like Rob said before, it's like the man without the mask. And it was, I think I was more worried about how I'd react, or whether I'd either just sit there and freeze and burst into tears, or whether I'd go on the flip side and try diving across the table. It was, I just didn't know how I decided I was going to react, but I thought, well, no, what's the point? I will get my point across, but I'll do it in a much more reserved way than what I really wanted to do was probably, in lack of a better phrase, sorry, Rob, but punch him in the face. But it was, I think it was just one of those things of, I'd been prepared for it. I'd been advised what was going to happen and how things were going to go and everything else. So I think I was as prepared as I could be physically, although mentally I was still bricking it really, because it was a prison. It's not an environment I'm used to, and it's
Sure.
still coming face to face with that person who I think at that time it had been 2.5 years since I'd actually seen him happen. So you know, it's not as if I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I kind of was in a strange way at the same time,
okay.
really, because I was able to get off my chest what I thought of him, what I felt, and how he made me feel that day, that night, and subsequently after the fact. So it was kind of getting my side of the story across as well.
So you put the coat on, you go out through the front door, you close the door. What's going through your head there? Because I know it for all the, you know, what you've just talked through, that mental internal battle. But to actually close the door behind yourself and take those steps towards, I'm actually going to do this now.
I think it was just, I was kind of going through my head at what I wanted to say to him, really. And I mean, I said from day one, really, to Becky that I said I want to go in and I want to make him feel guilty. If I know he's going to feel guilty as it is anyway, but I want to make him feel even more guilty, because it's the aftermath of that minute and a half versus further down the line. So it was, like I say, it was me getting my point across, but it was still, I think I was going through what I wanted to say to him, but not knowing what he was going to tell me of his side of the story. I didn't know how I was, like I say, what I was going to say, what I was going to reply to what he was going to tell me, and it was going through my mind of what's he going to say, what's he going to possibly do, you know, how's he going to get his side of the story across.
Yeah.
So it was still kind of, I think it was just like a mini tornado going through my head of what's going to say, what am I going to say, what's he going to say, what's going to be done, where's it going to go after this, and so it was a bit like, although I was prepared for it, I was still like a little bit, my head was still a little bit chaotic, because you don't know exactly how it's going to go. Like Becky said, it's something could change at the last minute. You know, I could have got to the door and just turned around and wimped out, but it's just one of them things. I think it was like a battle in my own head at the same time of go through with it, because you want to get your point across, but I also wanted to hear his side of the story as well.
How did you actually get to the prison?
I think Becky picked me up and took me that way. Because again, like I said, it's not an environment I'm used to, and I didn't even know where it was. Turns out I've driven past it loads of times and not even realised it was a prison. But so yeah, Becky told me that, and we walked in the same route that we did when we did the planned visit beforehand to choose a room and things like that. And so I knew what to expect.
Okay, so the preparation visit really did help then?
Yeah, I think if that preparation visit wasn't done, I think I probably would have got to the front door and turned around and said, no, I can't, because it's not normal.
Yeah.
But I think having that preparation visit and being able to choose, because the rooms, I remember that I was given as a choice. One was kind of like quite a small office room, and I'm like, no, it's too close quarters. I don't want to be that close to him.
Yeah.
Whereas the other room was quite a big, like almost like a board meeting room,
Right, okay.
with a big long table in, and it's like I want to be at one end of the table and him at the opposite end,
okay.
and I want to be as far away as possible. And then now you get us sat in a similar room and we're sat next to each other. It's quite a strange.
Yeah,
it's quite strange. You know, like 5 or 6 years ago, I said I don't want to be anywhere near him. Whereas now I can quite happily sit in a room with him, and it doesn't.
But I think that also then is as we were intimating earlier on, it's a testament to the way that the process has been facilitated for you, and I suppose the impact that it's had on you is that you've went from being I only will be at the other end of a table, where we are today in this room. You're sitting side by side with each other. That's a testament in itself to how this thing has actually panned out. Rob, let's come to you and have a chat with you about that. So you're obviously in your cell.
No, I was in open prison.
You're in open prison, okay. And what's that like for you then on the day this meeting is going to take place? What is going on in your mind?
Horrible.
Why?
It's like everything rolled into one. So it's like it's like you have to go to the headmaster's office. It's like you're going to go home. You know your mum's going to give you it for you've done something at school or everything, and all that rolled into one, and knowing that you are in trouble, like because of something of your actions, knowing that you're going to have to go and stand there, apologise, and you know it's going to come at you. You're getting it from both angles, you know. So it was horrible. I ate that on a good day, just off a little bollocking, but yeah, it was horrible.
So you're there, open prison. Someone just comes and gets you then, do they? They just come in,
Yeah,
grab you in,
it's
and go?
no, it wasn't like that. I knew it was happening. I knew what time it was happening, so I had time to.
Were you pacing about?
I was sweating. I was sweating. It was probably -5, and I was sweating. No, I wanted Gemma to know, even though she didn't see me on the night of the incident, I was still guilty. So we still got charged with the same offence. We both implicated in the crime. I wanted her to know that I am not the man that obviously was on that night, and I wanted to just apologise to her face, look her in the face, and to say I am sorry.
So you leave the confines of the open prison, and you're being walked to the room. You'd obviously been made aware of where it was going to be taking place.
Yeah, I knew. I'd never been through that door though, because
So you hadn't actually been in through the door, okay,
No.
right? But you're walking down towards this door.
Yeah.
You've got to be, like you
Yeah.
said, you were sweating.
Oh, I was
just
sweating.
walking about, but you've got to be feeling the heart palpitation,
Horrible.
the sense of nerves or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, what is it? I'm actually going to walk into the room.
Serious.
Yeah?
Serious. It's like going on the scariest roller coaster as a kid, or walking towards the dentist because you know you're going to go get a filling. It's like put everything in together, and that's what it was like. But I asked for this. Do you know what I mean? So it was something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Something that I wanted to progress. So it was nerves, and it was like, right, let's do it. All rolled into one.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it there that you're standing outside the door. I'm going to come back to Gemma, right? Gemma, you've been brought in. You're sitting at this end of the table or the end of the room or whatever it was going on there. The door opens and you see Rob for the first time. What did you feel?
I think everything from that night just came flooding back. It was, I don't know whether Becky noticed, but I started shaking in the chair, and I went straight into like defensive mode. I kind of clammed up a little bit. I sat and I folded my arms, and I think if I was being polite, I think I was crapping myself really a little bit. But I didn't see his face clearly that night, so he was still a bit of a stranger to me. But knowing that was him, it's still kind of, because I was at the furthest away from the door at the time, so when the door opened, I see him come round, it was just that initial, it's like that few seconds of panic.
Okay.
And it was like the heart rate went up, I started shaking, and I just kind of clammed up, I went tense, and it was really, and then it was kind of like somebody's hit play on a reel at the back of my head, and that whole night just started playing over again. It was really strange.
Okay. And how did you kind of bring yourself back down there? What happened? Because obviously sometimes that can be overwhelming in regards to reliving a traumatic event. How did it subside reasonably quickly for you, or what happened?
Yeah, it kind of disappeared quite quickly. I think I just kind of had it in the back of my mind. I think from previous employment in the care sector, it was just a case of, I think I kind of switched myself into, right, you've just found somebody that's fallen, just get over it. You can't panic, you've got like a routine that you need to do with it. And I think I just kind of switched over to something like that, and that kind of chilled me out a little bit to the point of, I need to sit and hear his side of the story before I can then, in lack of a better phrase, give him both barrels from my side. It was, but I think, like I say, previous job training helped me kind of bring myself back from probably going into a full-on panic attack.
Yeah.
But
But that's got to be a strange place to be as well, because when we were talking just earlier on there, you know, this idea of preparing yourself for what am I going to say, how am I going to say it, and then walking into the room and that almost disappears. It's like kind of going, like this reliving of the experience has almost nullified all your own kind of thoughts that morning. It's got to be a weird kind of experience.
yeah, it was like clearing an Etch-a-Sketch, really. It was like somebody just shook everything that I was thinking of on the way there that I could have said, would have said, and it just kind of went. But then, like I say, I think previous work training had kind of brought it all back to, like, brought me back down to earth, really, without so much of the hard bump. It was just brought me back down to earth to say, right, this is something that he's wanted and you've wanted. You've got to just
Get in there.
get on with it, really.
Okay. So, Rob, coming back to you then. Door opens. You walk into the room. Gemma's sitting there. What's going through your head?
Obviously there was a few of us in the room. So at first, obviously I hadn't seen her. I didn't see her on the night. I didn't know. I just... I got told where to sit. I sat down, and then I could see obviously that Gemma was, and it was just, I don't know. What was it? Well, I was scared, obviously, but it was more, right, let's get on with it, right? Because I think I'd written about 5, 6, 7 A4 pieces of paper of what I want to say, and then I went in with nothing. I thought, I'm not going to just reel off a piece of paper. I said, that's not. I wanted to sit down, speak to her, but I wanted it done right. Obviously, we had Becky and everyone with us in there, so they said, right, we'll start here. We'll do this. Have you got something to say? And it worked out better than me and Gemma just started talking.
Okay.
Just like two normal people.
Okay. So how did that whole process then, Gemma? We'll start with you. How did it allow you to both say the things that you wanted to say and I suppose get the answers that you wanted? What was it about how it was facilitated that allowed that to happen?
I think it's just because we were both allowed to give our side of the story to each other, because like there always is, there's two sides to every story, and as most victims never ever get to give their side to the person who's committed that crime against them, and I was lucky enough to have that chance, just as like Rob was lucky enough to have the chance to apologise and let his side, give me his side of the story, why he did it, why he might have been talked into doing it, or for whatever reason. And like I say, I think the fact that we could both calmly, in a controlled environment, get our points across and kind of, I suppose, bring each other both like back down to earth with a bump at why you need to change your ways, you need to do this, you need to, you know, it's not just you and me that this involves, it's you and your kids and your family, it's me and my kids and my family and everybody else. It's the whole big ripple effect, and it's getting the points across and voicing each other's opinion over it, really.
Yeah. Who spoke first?
It was Rob.
Rob spoke first. Yeah. What was that like for you then, listening to Rob saying how he felt about things? You've obviously wanted to hear this. What was it like when he started to speak?
For starters, I think his first couple of sentences, it was exactly what I expected to hear, really. He'd had a few too many to drink. He had drugs in his system, and it was, my brain just kind of said, well, typical. It's what I expected, really. I mean, nobody in the right mind, sober and grounded, is gonna go into a petrol station and without being under the influence of something. And it was the typical answer, and it's especially what my husband would have expected as well. He would have typical, but I thought, no, we'll hear him out. We'll let him get his point across. And I think what kind of helped me let my guard down a little bit with him was the fact that he said that the other lad I tried talking him into it, and he'd initially said no. So there was something there that knew what he was being asked of was wrong. But then he said eventually, 3 or 4 days later, he said he kind of wore me down, and I just said yes to shut him up. So I've kind of well, you weren't the ringleader in it. You definitely weren't anyway. I could tell that on the night it happened. You weren't the ringleader in it, but you were talked into it. You were coerced into it. So it's not, you aren't the one you are at fault, but not 110%.
And did that change things then for you throughout the rest of the conversation then? Did things start to, I suppose for me, did things start to melt away for you? Was there maybe a sense of God, I understand a wee bit more where he's coming from now?
Yes and no. It was, I didn't let my guard down completely. It was still, but I heard him out. I had a little bit of sympathy for him because it was, like I say, he was talked into it. He knew initially it was wrong because he said no, and then eventually he's been pestered that much that he's just said yes to shut him up and get him off his case. But the fact is, I think even before, during and after, he's known from start to finish that it was wrong. And regardless of having things in his system, he's said, I knew it was wrong, but I still went ahead and did it. And he's admitted that.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that I could still, like I say, get my point across to him as well, that you know as an adult that what you did was wrong, and you now you're doing your time for that. But what example is that setting for your kids at the same time? It's so it's, and the fact that, I mean, through sitting and chatting in that room, we ended up finding out that we are quite a lot similar.
Right,
we are quite a lot alike. And I think that kind of eased it off a little bit as well. It's the fact that we do have quite a lot in common. We've just picked 2 completely different paths in life.
Sure. How important was it for you to hear Rob take responsibility?
I think the one reason that I said I'd meet him face to face, or I wanted the face to face meeting, was because you can't take somebody's apology from a piece of paper. Anything that's written down in front of you, it can be taken out of context. Him apologising to me face to face, I can see through his body language, through his face, through his tone of voice, at whether he meant that or not. And that was one reason why I opted for the face to face, regardless of my other 2 colleagues thinking I would definitely lost a screw there. They thought I was nuts for doing it, but you can't take somebody's apology from a piece of paper. You can't read the body language, you can't read the tone of voice, and like I say, that's why I did it face to face, is so I could see if it was genuine or not. Sure.
So, Rob, you get finished speaking. Gemma's heard you out. You now have to listen to her. What was that like for you? What was it like hearing Gemma's experience?
It was what I half was expecting, but there was other things involved. Gemma had family issues. Obviously, I don't want to go into them, but she had more problems from that night due to us. We'd caused more problems in her life. It was horrible. It was horrible because now this isn't in, like she says, it's not in a text. It's not in a text. It's not in a piece of paper. She's just writing it down. She's telling me, well, like we are now, face to face, I caused problems for her family, and that was horrible. That was that.
Did it change something inside of you?
I was ready. I was ready to apologise for that night. Then she's telling us there's more going on, and that's like, it's like a double blow. You weren't expecting that one. And I think things like that were what Gemma realised, that I was being sincere, because they were horrible there. It's horrible saying sorry for something anyway, but a major problem. Then a double blow, even more. It was like, it was serious. Like, it was hard, but the best thing I've ever done, best ever thing.
It's supposed for me. It's almost can be, no matter how many times I hear that, it's still strange to hear someone say that sometimes the hardest thing that I've had to do in my life has been the best thing that I've actually done
100%.
for yourself. And I suppose one of the things that I think about the restorative process is that it reiterates the points that the important things or the valuable things in our lives don't come easy.
Yeah.
The things that really matter to us don't come easy. They require a bit of pain. They require a bit of soul searching. It requires to take stock of things. And it sounds like you did. What difference has taken part in this process, Rob, made to your life? What's it done for you?
The thing with me was I needed to do this. If I didn't do this, I could have went just another statistic, sat in jail, gets out, goes on a drink, has a fight, does whatever, And that's what my life would have just ended up being. And being able to do this, be sincere and speak to my victim and prove that, like she said, leopards can change their spots. And for me to stay out and prove to myself, to my family, and then to Gemma and all people, like, because it doesn't just stay with family. It goes from my family to the outside family, friends, family. It just keeps going further and further away. So for me, just to be in a community, going to work, keeping my head down, a boring life is the best life I'd ever asked for. On Friday nights, now I'm in bed for 9 o'clock. Like, my nights hadn't started by 9 o'clock on a Friday, do you know?
Right.
And restorative justice has helped me massively. It's made me second guess things. Should I do that? You know, and then you think, I think I'll give that one a miss. So restorative justice for me has changed my way of thinking, what has changed my life, made it for the better.
Gemma, what about you? What have you got out of this?
I think it's being able to, because I said to Becky, I want to be the irritating voice in the back of his head that puts him off doing something stupid again. It's, if you ever think of doing a repeat of what happened then, I want to be that little voice in the back of your head that puts you off because of what happened to me. It's like you said there, it's not just the families, it's the one big ripple effect of it was me and you, the other lad and the other ones involved that night, and me and my colleagues, and then you've got all of us have got families, and then kids and parents, and it is one big ripple effect. And I think from our conversations is you've now realised that it's not just the people that were in the store at that time that it's affected, it's one big huge load of people. But with this, it's given me the knowledge of, do I know of anybody else that's had something similar happen to them? I can refer them on to this system because it's worked for me. And I think Rob's even shocked that he's got something out of it as well, because he's just done it to apologise. He's not expected to get anything out of it, and I think you've had a shock out of that as well, of what it's done for you as well. It's not just all about the victim side of it, it's about the other side of it as well. You can both learn from it. You can both get something out of it.
Well, I have to say thank you again for sharing your experiences of that. I mean, and hopefully we've been able to paint a bit of a picture for people listening in regards to what that experience of the actual meeting was actually like. And what we're going to do is, in the next episode then, is that we'll talk with you a wee bit further about what happens after this process has been completed, I suppose, because it's all fair and well having the preparation, then having the meeting, but it doesn't end there. There's more to it than just having that conversation, that initial meeting. And we'll talk about that more in the next episode. So make sure you join us on the next episode of Resolution. Until the next one, look after yourselves and take it easy.